Hello everyone, welcome back to MindBuild77. My name is Liam, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about something that's sort of different from what I've been talking about for the last month about. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about UFO sightings and their frequency throughout the years and decades. So I'm sure that you guys know that this year, or particularly this year and last year, there was a massive uptick in the talk about UFOs, when before this, there was basically nothing. But it wasn't always like this. Back a long time ago, really before the internet, UFOs were talked about more, especially in 1947 with the Roswell incident, and then also throughout the 1970s also. So the topic for this video actually comes from someone who commented on my videos, and his name is the Fake Antichrist. So what he said in his comment is, "Been looking at historical records. UFO reports are pretty scarce up until about 1940. Then at about 1946, there are a series of incidents. Roswell was in 1947. The rate of UFO sightings and reports increases more and more each year, leading up until 1952. In 1952, a large number of UFOs were seen by thousands over the Whitehouse on 2 occasions, 1 week apart. After 1952, the number of UFO sightings and UFO reports begins to decline until around 1970. Nowadays, there are only 2 to 3 credible UFO reportings and sightings every year. It seems like they made a contract in 1952, and from there, they negotiated terms. After this point, it was easier to hide and coordinate craft movements to be less obvious. This is why the sudden spike and decline in UFO sightings happened. Maybe you could cover this, and I did. So to answer this question, we'd have to go back quite a while, back into the 40s, and before then, yes, I do agree that there weren't very many UFO sightings before then, but that was because science fiction wasn't really that much of a thing, and because lots of these sightings, I believe at least, lots of them are, fakes and hoaxes. It really only started after Roswell, because that's when, UFOs were more introduced to the public. I don't have first-hand experience on this because I wasn't alive in the 40s, but I definitely do agree that looking back, there were lots of UFO reports. And leading up to 1952, there could have been lots. Now, I'm not saying that every single UFO sighting is fake. That's not at all what I'm saying. I think that many of them are real. I've seen many. I've seen many people's stories. I do believe lots of people, but it does seem weird that around that time, 1952, there weren't very many UFO reports or sightings. That's sort of like, it's sort of odd, because they were getting more and more popular. So I don't know, maybe they had to shut it down, but that's just my, speculation. And then UFOs, except for science fiction, they weren't really talked about just until now, until this year really, because there are, UFO sightings, pretty much every single week. They're like releasing some new black vault footage of like a UFO over a naval base. I mean, that's something. At least something's going on with this topic. I mean, I still don't believe everything that comes out. I definitely don't think that all those, Pentagon UFO videos are, I think that many of them have natural origins. And, like I said a couple videos ago, the camera lens does play a big part in it because it does make objects look very different, like a plane. It makes it look like an actual UFO with like a saucer shape. And who knows in the future, how many UFO sightings will be reported, far in the future from now? Will it be more common or will it be less common? Now, there was a spike in UFO sightings last year, I believe, and also many of the UFO footage that is released now, like from these trusted sources, most of these videos are from 2019. So there were a spike in UFO sightings then, but also you have to take into account that that's when the whole lockdown thing happened. So, I mean, many people were at home and they weren't at work to actually see these actual craft in the sky. So, they could have made up these stories, at least some of them are made up, or, they could have just, seen them. Meanwhile, they wouldn't have if it was like a normal circumstance. And I know that there's lots of possibilities here and I can't touch on every single one, but I'm giving my opinion here on your comment. And I definitely do think and agree with what you said there. There definitely aren't as many UFO sightings as there were before. However, with the uptick in UFO sightings now, that might change in the future, or it might have already changed now. Definitely before this time, there weren't, UFOs were just kind of laughed at. And they still sort of are, but they're definitely being taken seriously now by, government agencies and things like that. They seem to be actually, paying attention to these UFO sightings, as they should, because, if lots of them are real, I think at least, so, those should be tracked and they should be released into the public, so I guess it's a long time coming, at least from my point of view. But it is funny, because lots of the UFO sightings, like the popular ones, are all from decades and decades ago, or at least the early 2000s were the last few that were actually, popular. There's not really that many like from the recent decade, and I'm not really sure why. Maybe those stories haven't just been let out, because with censorship, which is a real thing. I've talked with many people. There is censorship. It is real, so they might be suppressing some of these stories, or maybe not. Maybe there's just not that many people reporting on this anymore. But I mean, that could change because people are now interested in UFOs again, and I think that's great personally. But it is sort of weird how, if these UFOs have been visiting us for thousands of years, why is there so much like, incline then decline and people witnessing them? I mean, it doesn't really add up all that well. And also, with science fiction, that's a big part because really UFO sightings, well, they did start before movies and science fiction movies came out, but I think that it definitely helped people's, understanding that there could be aliens out there, even if these movies are just science fictional. But that's my take on it, at least. I think that many of these, possibilities could be actually happening. But I hope that you liked my response to your comment, the Antichrist. I tried to answer it in the most honest way and what I actually think is going on, even though, I don't have all the answers. But thank you everyone for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you like my upgraded setup that I have here for videos and the lighting and everything. And thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.